Hi, I'm Ken Murdoch, and this is the GDB Network. Those three letters, GDB, stand for Gotta Do Better. My background includes a degree in economics. I've owned businesses, paid a lot of taxes, and today I'm a professor in the College of Business of a large state university. In this brief video, I want to share with you my perspective on President Trump's trade policies and how they stack up against proven economic and trade practices. We will also examine how his zero-sum trade strategy could leave America holding the short end of the stick. Donald Trump has long prided himself on being a master negotiator. From real estate to politics, he's built his brand on the belief that every deal must have a winner and a loser, and that he's always the winner. But in international trade and diplomacy, that mindset is not only short-sighted, it's potentially dangerous. I'm going to talk about how Trump's impulsive approach to foreign policy, particularly with China, Mexico, and Canada, is creating a new world order that may leave the United States worse off than before. We will also explore how his fixation on winning blinds him to the long-term costs of alienating key partners. So imagine this. You're selling your house. It's a beautiful property. It's landscaped, has a pool, it's in a prime neighborhood. A buyer makes you a fair offer, and you agree. But before the closing, you tell the buyer that you've changed your mind and now you want $50,000 more. The buyer walks away and finds another house. As you're seeing the deal slip away, you call the buyer back and say you will accept the original offer. But the buyer replies, okay, on one condition, and that is that you must now pay $25,000 to resurface the 10-year-old swimming pool. You accept these terms. Then you tell your friends what a brilliant negotiator you are. The scenario I just described is pretty much what just happened between the United States and China. President Trump recently declared his new trade deal with China to be a 12 on a 1 to 10 scale, but the reality is far less triumphant. China had withheld purchases of U.S. soybeans and restricted exports of rare earth minerals in retaliation for Trump's tariffs. In the new agreement, China has agreed to resume soybean purchases and temporarily ease the restrictions on exporting those rare earth minerals. In return, the U.S. agreed to reduce certain tariffs and, more significantly, to loosen restrictions on advanced semiconductor exports to China, a major concession that had previously been framed as a national security issue. The U.S. is now back to where it started, except now China has access to critical technologies that it did not have before. Trump is touting this as a major win, but like the house seller who ends up paying more just to close the original deal, the U.S. has made concessions to restore a status quo that Trump himself disrupted. Trump's zero-sum approach doesn't stop with China. His repeated antagonism toward Mexico and Canada, two of America's most important trading partners, reveals a dangerous disregard for history and economic fundamentals. For decades, the United States, Mexico, and Canada have enjoyed mutually beneficial trade relationships that reflect the very principles outlined in Adam Smith's book, The Wealth of Nations, in which he said each nation should focus on making and producing what it does best and buy from other nations what they do best. That way, everyone gets the benefit of lower costs and production efficiencies. The United States, Mexico, and Canada have each leveraged their own comparative and competitive advantages. Mexico offers abundant, low-cost labor and an ideal climate for growing the fruits, vegetables, and other crops that the United States and Canada import in large quantities. Canada provides vast timber reserves and natural resources that support U.S. construction and energy sectors. And the United States contributes a massive consumer market and advanced technology, including capital goods and industrial equipment that both neighbors rely on. These relationships are not just economically efficient, they're geographically logical. Goods move quickly and cheaply across shared borders by truck and rail, avoiding the delays and costs of overseas shipping. Replacing these key partners with distant nations like Vietnam or India may sound strategic, but it introduces longer transit times, higher shipping costs, and greater logistical complexity. When Trump alienates Mexico and Canada, he's not just risking diplomatic fallout, he's threatening the economic efficiency of entire industries. And unlike in real estate, there's no backup buyer waiting in the wings. What President Trump must realize is that we cannot acquire new next door neighbors. The people of Canada and Mexico are not going anywhere. For the United States not to have good relations in every area with our neighbors is foolish, costly, and ridiculously short sighted. At its core, Trump's foreign policy suffers from a fundamental misunderstanding of global strategy. He's trying to play chess with a checkers mentality. In checkers, every piece is the same, they move in simple, predictable ways. But in chess, each piece has a distinct role, value, and range of motion. Success requires foresight, coordination, and an understanding of how each move affects the entire board. The best players are always thinking several moves ahead. Trump's approach is one that treats every country, every deal, and every outcome as interchangeable, as if the only goal is to jump the opponent and declare victory. But international diplomacy and negotiations are chess on steroids. They're complex, layered, and long-term. And trying to play chess like it's checkers is a strategy doomed to fail. Trump's foreign policy is driven by a belief that every deal must have a loser. But in global diplomacy, that mindset often leads to several negative outcomes. The first of those is retaliation. Nations don't always capitulate. They often push back. China, for example, withheld key exports, found new suppliers for the products it needs to import, and found new markets for what it produces and exports. The second downside is that there's no plan B. When Trump burns bridges, there's often no viable alternative. The U.S. ends up making concessions just to restore what was lost. And the third downside is what we call strategic erosion. America's reputation as a reliable partner is weakening. In the long run, this approach may leave the United States less influential, less trusted, and less competitive on the global stage. If this analysis resonates with you, I encourage you to share it with colleagues, students, or friends. Your engagement helps foster thoughtful dialogue in a time of global uncertainty. Post your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. You can forward this video to someone who values clear-eyed political analysis. Stay informed, stay curious, stay engaged. And if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, you can find the link to it in the description below. Thank you for watching.